Seattle trading rights to Pippen to the Bulls, Jerry West trading Vlade Divac to the Hornets for Kobe, the Celtics trading for Garnett and Ray Allen. These are some of the trades that changed the course of NBA history the moment they happened. But what about the trades that didn't happen? Trades that were about to change the NBA completely, but fell through at the last moment. Do you ever think about the trades that are
pure fiction?
From MJ and Hakeem teaming up as rookies, to Carmelo joining forces with LeBron on the Cavs. Here are some of the biggest NBA trades that almost happened. Okay, so there's one trade that comes to every NBA fan's mind when we talk about what-if scenarios. Are we starting the list with that trade?
You were right.
The year is 2011. We're coming off LeBron's first season in Miami, which ended with a loss to the Mavs. Derrick Rose has just become the youngest MVP ever, and the league started later because of a lockout. And Chris Paul isn't happy. CP3 was drafted by the New Orleans Hornets, and he played for the team from 2005 to 2011, becoming the face of the Hornets franchise and an All-NBA guard, and the guy who led them to their best record ever.
Look at this. Didn't stop the ball, and Paul will go the distance.
They don't call him point guard for no reason.
Paul makes his move, acceleration to the rim.
But despite CP3's contributions and the small flashes of greatness, the Hornets weren't really consistent. The owners sold the team in 2010 to the NBA League due to some big debt, and they even missed the playoffs in the 2010 through 2011 season. So the Hornets were probably going to relocate in the next few years.
A lot of time didn't pass now, but they was coming to practice, right? Because there'd be a lot of people in New Orleans say, you left us, whatever. If I keep it 100 right now, I tell you, they was coming to practice and telling us that the team was leaving. They was telling us that the team was moving to Kansas City. They told us that the team was moving to, San Diego, somewhere in California.
The 2011 through 2012 season started with a lockout, and Paul wanted to play for a title, so the Hornets started making calls. The Lakers, looking for another superstar and title, picked up. And on December 2011, around 6 p.m., Woj tweeted that the Hornets were close to finalizing a deal to send Paul to LA. Half an hour later, the details of the trades leaked. It was a 3-team deal involving the Hornets, Lakers, and Rockets. The Lakers were about to get Chris Paul, the Hornets get Lamar Odom, Kevin Martin, and Luis Scola, while the Rockets were about to get the older Gasol brother. At around 7, the deal was nearing closure. It was going down. We were about to see a Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant backcourt duo and possibly another Laker ring, right?
It never happened.
Just an hour later, Woj reported that the deal was off. David Stern, the NBA commissioner at the time, vetoed the trade for basketball reasons. Did the NBA really sabotage the Lakers because of some deep-rooted hatred of the Lakers? No, not really. So,
what the hell happened here?
The NBA can't veto any trade they want. They had the ability to do it because they own the Hornets.
Like, David Stern didn't reject the trade as commissioner. He rejected the trade as governor of the New Orleans team. So it wasn't the NBA trying to keep the Lakers from Chris Paul. It was David Stern had a responsibility to make sure that it was a trade that he would approve.
Stern was pressured by NBA team owners, and especially the Cavs owner Dan Gilbert, to call off the trade because it would make the Lakers too good. Dan Gilbert wrote an angry email to David Stern calling the trade a travesty, explaining how a trade would not only land the Lakers a superstar, but also save them enough cap space to make a trade for Dwight Howard down the line. Yeah, Dan Gilbert was being a Karen. If the trade went down, we could have seen Kobe, CP3, and Dwight Howard team up in LA. That means we could have also seen a few LeBron versus Kobe matchups in the finals. Instead, we got a failed Lakers super team.
Ball deflected into the hands of James. James goes past Bryant, draws the foul.
A few second-round meltdowns from Lob City.
It's good.
And Dan Gilbert getting his precious ring from LeBron. Oh, and CP3 got a lot of this.
Had gone from a one-time love affair with Chris Paul to a guy they love to shower with the booze, which is the greatest compliment a player can get, right?
Was this story based?
Let's travel back to 1984. The Lakers-Celtics rivalry is booming. Bird just won his first out of 3 consecutive MVPs. The league has a fresh new face commissioner, David Stern, and the new draft prospects are looking really good. Okay, so we all know how much of a mistake the Portland Trailblazers made when they chose Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan in the '84 draft. The fact that Bowie lied to Portland about his injuries makes the story even more crazy. But not everyone is aware that the Rockets made a pretty big mistake themselves in this draft. No, I'm not talking about selecting Jordan instead of Hakeem, because I know if I say that I'll anger a lot of fans in the comments. I'm talking about the fact that they could have had Jordan, Hakeem, and Clyde Drexler on their team. All 3?
All 3 of y'all.
First, you need to realize that the Blazers were desperately looking for a center at this time. In his 1996 autobiography, Living the Dream, Olajuwon mentions in passing that the Blazers sent an offer to the Rockets. They offered to trade the second pick in this year's draft and their young newcomer Clyde Drexler for Ralph Sampson. So, in theory, the Rockets could have selected Hakeem with the first pick, Jordan with the second, and Clyde as a part of the deal.
Jesus Christ.
These three guys appeared in 9 out of the 10 NBA Finals in the 90s and won rings in 8 out of those 9 appearances. So imagine these three in the same team. Yeah, scary. To understand how and why this trade almost happened, you need to have been a long-time NBA fan. You'll need to do your homework and realize just how good Ralph Sampson was. In modern terms, he was sort of like Wemby of the 80s. It's just a simple comparison, old heads. I know Wembanyama and Ralph Sampson are not the exact same player, thank you. Sampson was a 7'4" specimen who averaged 21 and 11 in his rookie season, where he made the All-Star team and snatched the Rookie of the Year award. He was the first center to show all-court versatility. As the Hall of Fame so eloquently puts it, that means he could go coast to coast like a guard, do crossovers and shoot floaters, and of course, dominate the paint. Unfortunately, his career was shortened by injuries, and he retired after playing less than 500 games in the league. While Hakeem and Sampson paired well, even making the finals in '86, the thought of having the Dream and MJ on the same team, man. Yeah, so the Rockets rejected the Blazers' offer. The basketball gods wouldn't let something awesome like a Hakeem-Jordan duo happen.
Not a chance.
Before we move on, here's another interesting tidbit that people seem to gloss over. In his biography, Hakeem did mention that the Blazers would have agreed to take either Sampson or him in exchange for Clyde in the second pick. So he could have got Hakeem on the Blazers, but
It never happened.
fine, enough of this old school talk. Let's talk about something a little bit more up to date. For instance, the team that changed the way we look at basketball. Fast forward to 2012. Miami, led by the league MVP LeBron, managed to redeem themselves and win a championship. OKC Thunder, led by a young trio of Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, emerged as contenders, setting the stage for a new era in the league. Or so we thought. Every time I do one of those draft videos, I realize just how hard it is to find the right pieces through the draft. You need as many tries as possible to find the right players. However, some teams are smart or lucky enough to draft the right people. OKC drafted 3 future Hall of Famers in 3 consecutive drafts.
The Seattle Supersonics select Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook from UCLA, James Harden of Arizona.
In just 3 seasons of playing together, the young OKC trio became a force of nature. Westbrook emerged as one of the best point guards in the game, Durant led the league in scoring, and Harden won the 6th Man of the Year. They also had a 4th emerging star in Serge Ibaka. The team won 47 out of 66 games that year, battled through the West, and made it to the finals. Things went great from there. Well, not quite. The Heat handed them a gentleman's sweep. But still, most of the games were close, and everyone knew that the Thunder would be back the next year even stronger, right?
Stop being funny.
The fans, players, and management wanted to run it back. But there was one problem.
Sea captain, what is this shit?
They didn't have the salary cap to hand out large contracts to all 4 of their stars. The team was forced to choose between Harden and Ibaka. The team chooses to stay with Ibaka and trade Harden, since they already have 2 scorers in KD and Russ. The word was out that OKC was ready to trade Harden. Sam Presti decided to start making calls. The first number he called, the Golden State Warriors front office. The 2012 NBA draft was just around the corner, and it was expected that the Warriors would draft the talented Washington State guard Klay Thompson. But again, the problem was, the trade fell through because OKC wasn't willing to take on expiring contracts of Jefferson and Beandrish. While they really wanted Klay, they didn't want the expensive contracts to impact their luxury tax. If the trade had happened, the Warriors' projected lineup would have been Steph Curry, James Harden, Harrison Barnes, David Lee, and Andrew Bogut. Hey, you have to admit, that starting 5 is kind of fire. It could have made that young core championship contenders a few years earlier than it ended up being. On the other hand, the Thunder's projected lineup could have included Russell Westbrook, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, and Kendrick Perkins. In the end, Harden and company was traded to the Rockets. Klay became an all-star and the 2nd best shooter in history, helping the Warriors win multiple championships in the process. Still, this isn't the only time Klay found himself in the middle of trade rumors, but more on that a bit later. We're still in 2012. Everything's the same as it was just a few minutes ago. Let's talk about the Warriors some more. While Steph Curry was seen as a major talent even back in college, many critics doubted he had major success at the highest level. For most people, he was too short, too injury prone, too reliant on shooting threes.
His first NBA shot.
He showed a lot of promise in his first 2 seasons, playing alongside another all-star small guard, Monte Ellis. However, he missed a large chunk of his 3rd season due to a nasty ankle injury. He was starting to get a reputation for having glass ankles. To some of the fans, he just seemed like a younger, smaller version of Monte Ellis.
We really question the Monte trade, Monte Ellis. Like, you gonna trade Monte, and who gonna be our point? The little kid with the weak ankles?
Yeah.
Hey, people was mad.
As ridiculous as this might sound more than a decade later, in 2012, the Warriors were at a crossroads. Should they keep the fan favorite Monte Ellis and try to add pieces around him? Or should they start building a team around the young prospect? The thing is, the Warriors weren't completely sure themselves. They knew they needed a center and knew that they wanted the former first pick in the draft, Andrew Bogut. Bogut's trade stock dropped after his devastating elbow injury, but he was still considered to be one of the better centers in the NBA. So the Bucks were interested in receiving Steph Curry in the trade. So who nixed the trade?
But Milwaukee doctors, they didn't approve your ankles, said your ankles would be no good, and so they stopped the trade, and then ultimately Monte gets traded.
Also, Dub Nation should be forever thankful to Coach Jackson for vouching for Curry.
It's like I kind of stepped into and said, I'm going to give you the keys. I felt like I really believe in you. We just got to get you healthy, and that's what the rest of the season going to be about. So
in the end, the Warriors sent Monte Ellis, Ebke Udoh, and Kwame Brown to the Bucks in exchange for Andrew Bogut and Steven Jackson. The Warriors went on to become a dynasty and the first modern three-point shooting team. But there's one lingering question on most people's mind. Did we miss out on a potential Steph and Giannis partnership? Well,
It's an urban legend that never happened.
while there's a good chance the Bucks would have selected the Greek Freak in the draft, one has to wonder how he and Curry would develop around each other. There's no guarantee that they will become the most dominant players in their respective positions. In 1984, Michael Jordan wasn't Michael Jordan yet. He was still the College Player of the Year, coming into a league dominated by Bird, Magic, Isaiah, and Dr. J. Still, many teams were interested in him after his performance in the Team USA vs. NBA All-Star series of games.
There's the lead. Watch Jordan.
By 1988, everyone wanted his services. It seems like people were trying to trade for Mike before he even set foot on an NBA court. I'm guessing that's what happens when one of the best coaches ever calls you
the best basketball player that I've ever seen play,
while you're still a kid in college. But I don't remember hearing so many LeBron trade rumors ever. Were people aware that they could never make a trade package for Bron? Or was MJ so good that teams had to try? What makes you more of a GOAT? Y'all can go debate it in the comments section. I'll meet you there. But anyways, here are some of the biggest trade rumors surrounding Mike. The Bulls spent a better part of the 80s looking for a center. Before the 1984 draft, they were really interested in Jack Sigma. However, since they couldn't land him, they were considering trading their third pick for another big man. Besides having an awesome nickname and a mean right hand, Tree Rollins of the Atlanta Hawks was one of the best defenders with a league-leading 4.3 blocks per game. We don't have many details on the trade, but we do know one thing. With MJ and Neek, the Hawks would have been the best dunking show on the court and a chance to dominate the Eastern Conference for years. Instead, all we have from this trade is this MJ dunk.
One bounce dribble now to Jordan. Michael in from the left side, jammed it right over Rollins.
We don't have much information on this potential trade, but hear me out. According to Herald Sun's Michael Randall, at one point, the Sixers were prepared to trade Andrew Toney, Clement Johnson, and their fifth pick, which turned out to be Charles Barkley, for MJ. The Bulls had a chance to build their team around Chuck, while MJ could have been mentored by one of his idols, Dr. J. The Bulls were still looking for a center after the '84 draft was over. A few weeks after the draft, the Chicago Tribune reported that the Clippers, Mavs, and the Bulls were working on a three-way deal, with the key piece being the 1983 Rookie of the Year, the center, Terry Cummings. The deal fell apart, but this wouldn't be the last time the Clippers tried obtaining MJ. While all my younger viewers have heard of Dr. J, mostly because your parents probably told you that he invented basketball, it's hard to explain just how influential he was. He's the guy that made the dunk sexy and brought class to the NBA. At one point, Jordan was seen as the next Dr. J. Certainly, the general public wasn't aware how good MJ could be, but a lot of people were. The Sixers' former owner, Harold Katz, certainly was. He had a deal with the Bulls owner, Jonathan Kovler, to send Dr. J to Chicago for the third pick. Unfortunately for him, Rod Thorne killed the trade instantly and took Jordan. After the Bulls got gentlemanly swept by the Pistons in '88,
Left corner, fires no, rebound Jordan. Dumars went down, knocked down by Jordan, and Mahorn took Jordan down.
a popular theory among NBA fans was that the team could never win a chip due to Jordan's selfish style of play. The Clippers owner, Donald Sterling, quickly picked up the phones after the loss. He called the Bulls owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, and offered him a combination of 5 players or draft picks in exchange for Jordan. Reinsdorf, of course, refused.
I think he should be ashamed of himself.
In spite of many trade talks, after just a couple seasons on the hardwood floor, it was obvious Jordan was untradeable. He was giving you results on the floor, his play put butts in the seats, and he was the best ambassador every brand could wish for, except for any hair product brands, that is.
Michael Jordan used to be a
superstar.
Now I'm an ultra star.
Ultra Star is Ultra Star. Ultra clean
Is ultra star.
Ultra sexy is Ultra Star. From Johnson Products.
Stop it.
Let's travel to 2014. Miami went to their 4th straight finals. The Spurs won their 5th title in franchise history. And MVP Kevin Durant gave us one of the best memes of the year.
You the real MVP.
A decade ago, the NBA still hadn't transformed into what it is today. But we were on the brink of a 3-point revolution. The Warriors were on the brink of having a title contender, but they were only missing one piece. Kevin Love? Yes, the Warriors front office seriously considered trading their 2nd best player for K-Love. Today, some people think of him as nothing more than LeBron's tallest spot-up shooter. However, once upon a time, Love was a double-double machine and arguably the best rebounder in the game. He was also known for boxing out a sumo wrestler once.
Go.
But that's besides the point. The Warriors haven't had such a talented power forward on their roster since the early 90s and the days of Chris Webber. The management believed that his star power and rebounding is just what they needed to get over the hump and win a chip. They were ready to pull the trigger. Well, did they go through with it?
Not this time.
There was one thing standing in the way of the trade: the logo.
Jerry West.
Jerry West not only believed in Clay, but also thought that Love would tamper with the Warriors' style of play. You see, early in his career, Love was the most effective in the paint, and West believed that would disrupt the Warriors' pacing, a crucial element of their success. So with Love on board, it's questionable whether the Warriors' offense would fully develop and win them any titles. Jerry believed in the Splash Brothers so much that he threatened to resign if they traded Kevin Love for Klay Thompson.
Jerry, fucking busted my shaft, Pedro. Pro Shop has him on a tab.
Klay probably wouldn't love Minnesota either. See what I did there? You know, Klay wouldn't love Kevin Love Minnesota. Klay wouldn't love Minnesota. Anyways, Klay would have had little chance of success in his first season alongside Zach LaVine and Shabazz Muhammad. In the end, both Thompson and Love ended up being on the right side of history. Love won a title with LeBron in 2016, while Thompson won 4 titles with the Warriors, becoming a key figure in the organization. Yeah, Mr. West knew what he was talking about. Now, let's head to the early 1990s. Jordan and the Bulls just won their first title. Nowadays, you probably know Charles Barkley as the funny dude on TNT who makes some questionable statement.
When a guy's banging you, you spin off of him. Those are the worst defenders to play against, actually, because if you can feel their body, come on.
18 points for Joker.
But don't let the jean shorts and New Balances fool you. What your old man has been saying for years is true. Chuck was a beast. In his first 7 seasons with the Sixers, he posted 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, made multiple All-Star and All-NBA team appearances, and he also finished second behind Magic in the closest MVP race of all time. But for the record, Chuck had the most first-place votes. Tim Grover, the guy who trained, though everyone who's anyone, said that Chuck was the best athlete he ever worked with. Oh yeah, Chuck was also only roughly 6'5". Yeah, one of the most dominant forwards of the 80s and 90s, was as tall as your average shooting guard. Chuck was many things, but he wasn't happy. While Chuck saw a lot of personal success during his time in Philly, he still dreamed about team success. He wanted to contend, but Philly wasn't surrounding him with the right personnel, so he wanted out. One day in 1992, he got the good news. His agent called him and told him he was being traded to the Lakers for James Worthy. Chuck's mood changed, so he went out and had himself a couple of drinks. Well, more than a couple actually. Let me just let him tell the story.
So I get a call from my agent one morning, and he says, I think we got a deal. You're going to the Lakers. So me and 2 of my boys, this is about 11:30 during the day. So I get drunk in the middle of the day. I was so excited. My agent calls me back about 3 hours later. He said the Sixers pull out the deal, and we got a game that night.
It's fiction.
I do not even remember the game, actually. I can remember a lot of games I played, but that day we were so excited. I was getting out of Philadelphia, and I was blasted.
Chuck didn't leave then, but his desire to leave went nowhere. It would be interesting if the deal went down. With Magic retiring due to testing positive for HIV, Worthy became the team's main player but was limited by injuries. The addition of Chuck would have provided much needed depth to the Lakers roster, but who knows if this would have been good for the Lakers organization. They might have not landed Shaq and Kobe in the following years. Barkley was eventually traded to the Phoenix Suns for Jeff Hornacek, Andrew Lang, and Tim Perry. There, he would go on to win the MVP honors in 1993 and lead the Suns to the NBA Finals. And he didn't play drunk ever again. Chuck's a professional. Except when he's on TV.
Why does it sound like you're drunk? You all right? Hey, Mark Cuban, I see you down there.
Enough of the old guys. Let's visit 2016. The Cavs made their historic comeback in the finals. LeBron is feeling like the GOAT, and KD is sitting on the phone with Draymond, plotting to ruin his fun. The Denver Nuggets had just hired a new coach and are nurturing a promising Eastern European center. The only problem is that he's hurt. Luckily, they have another center from Eastern Europe. This one was drafted in the second round during a McDonald's commercial or something. He can't jump or do a push-up, but he's kinda nice. Okay, fine, I'll stop. If you're familiar with the channel, or if you're not, you should maybe start by subscribing. Just saying. You know that Nikola Jokic is my guy. I've been following his career for quite a while now, but I won't lie. I couldn't have known that he would become a multi-MVP and an NBA champion just by looking at his rookie campaign. But some people took notice. In 2016, the LA Clippers tried trading Blake Griffin, arguably the face of the franchise at that point, for Jokic. To be fair, the trade package included Nikola Jokic and Danilo Gallinari, who was still a talented prospect and the Nuggets' best player at the time. The funny thing is, Jokic was still just a rookie, averaging less than 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. But his coach believed in him.
You know, the kid in New York, Minnesota, and Philly, I don't know any of their names. I know Nikola Jokic, and I wouldn't trade him for anybody in the world. He's a special young talent, and he's only going to get better.
Surprisingly, the Nuggets were the ones to reject the trade.
No.
To many fans in 2016, this seemed preposterous. Refusing to take superstar Blake Griffin? Why? Because of some 2 European dudes? Come on. But with the information we have now, yeah, no one in their right mind would trade MVP Joker for a talented but always hurt Blake. The Nuggets made the decision to build their team around Jokic and traded away Jusuf Nurkic to make room for him. This was the best decision they ever made, as Jokic has gone on to become a 2-time MVP and lead the Nuggets to their first ever franchise title. If the trade had gone through, it could have altered NBA history. The Clippers could have been contenders and not blow a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets in 2020. In 2017, the Warriors won their first championship with Kevin Durant on the roster. LeBron and co were still making the finals, but they needed help, lots of it. Dan Gilbert and the rest of the Cavs management didn't want to see a reprisal of the decision. So he decided to play nice, trying to please LeBron at every step. And that meant trying to stack up the Cavs roster to the best of his abilities so they can continue competing for titles. Their main target?
George! On the market. Remember this hug at the end of the Pacers-Cavs series? I have no idea what sweet nothings LeBron was whispering in Paul's ear. And that's because while PG would in no way solve all of Cleveland's problems against the Warriors, you are talking about a legitimately dangerous offensive player who could also, wait for it, be an effective defender against Kevin Durant.
In June 2017, the Cleveland Cavaliers were close to completing a trade that would have brought PG to the team. The trade involved the Pacers, Cavaliers, and Nuggets. However, the Pacers backed out at the last minute.
We made this one up.
Paul George recently shared more details about the failed trade on a podcast.
I thought I was going to go to Cleveland, like close to getting me with Bron there. And so Dante was like our mediator, right? Dante Jones, who's our assistant. He was like our mediator. So he takes me to Bron's crib, chopping it up with Bron. Like, yo, how can we make this work? So I'm thinking like, oh, okay, we might make this happen. It fell through because, you know, Cleveland and Indiana's the same division. So Indy was like, well, we're not gonna trade them to our division.
Even crazier, at the same time, Carmelo Anthony was looking to leave New York, and one of the first destinations on his wish list was Cleveland. So if the Cavs managed to sign PG and convince Kyrie to stay, man, the potential lineup of Irving, LeBron James, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, and possibly Dwayne Wade would have posed a significant challenge to the Warriors in the finals.
Pure fiction.
After the failed trade, George spent 2 seasons with OKC before being traded to the Los Angeles Clippers in 2019. With the addition of Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers have become a championship contender. Out of all the players in the GOAT conversation, I feel like Kobe had the most interesting career by far. He came into the league drafted out of high school. He won championships playing a Pippen/Robin role early in his career. He argued with teammates, coaches, and upper management. He learned how to become a leader and won championships that way. Of course, he had the craziest farewell game of all time, no matter the sport.
Equals a 50-point game. Kobe underneath. He's to get tired. Down the middle he goes. Corner of the key. Bryant on his way.
Kobe spent 2 full decades wearing purple and gold, but he easily could have been traded. multiple times. Here are some of the bigger trades that we know Kobe was involved in over the years. In 1999, the Lakers toyed with the idea of trading a young Kobe to the Pistons for Grant Hill. This came about after Bryant's wrist injury sidelined him, and the Lakers kicked off the season with a 10-1 record without him. Despite Bryant's eagerness to be a starter and his focus on scoring, Jackson ultimately chose to keep Kobe, recognizing his potential.
This one was invented by a writer.
Fast forward to 2007, in the wake of Shaq's departure in a series of underwhelming seasons, Bryant's confidence in the Lakers front office waned, so he asked for a trade. He wanted to be traded to either the Bulls, Spurs, or Suns, with a particular interest in Chicago. However, negotiations with the Bulls fizzled out when they wouldn't include Luol Deng in the deal.
It never happened.
In that same year, there were whispers of a potential deal between the Lakers and the Mavericks, orchestrated by Mavericks owner Mark Cuban and the Lakers then owner Dr. Jerry Buss. The trade could have sent shockwaves through the NBA, but Lakers GM Mitch Kupchak convinced Bryant to stay.
We made up this one.
And there was the second time Kobe was almost banished to Detroit. LA was trying to send Bryant to the Pistons in a package deal including Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Amir Johnson, and a first-round pick. Bryant, leveraging his no-trade clause, vetoed the move. Instead of parting ways with Bryant, the Lakers doubled down and acquired Pau Gasol, a move that propelled them to consecutive championships in 2009 and 2010, solidifying Bryant's legacy with the team.
Not this time.
Last thing I want to mention isn't a trade, but it's just too good to pass on. In the early 2000s, Kobe didn't want to stay in Shaq's shadow for the rest of his career. While he was brainstorming his next move, he entertained the idea of signing with the Wizards. Of course, the fact that Mike was playing and actively trying to buy the Wizards at the moment had a lot to do with it. Kobe was convinced that Jordan could actually build a team around him and that they could win championships together. Unfortunately, Jordan's retirement following the 2002 through 2003 season and his subsequent departure from his role in basketball operations meant that his potential collaboration never came to fruition. Those are my picks for the biggest NBA trades that never happened. Yes, I'm aware that I did leave out some bigger ones, but let me hear from you. As a fan, have you ever had your heart broken from a failed trade? Ever had your hopes and dreams crushed by a bad GM move? Can you let bygones be bygones and forgive your GM for such a horrible mistake?
And can you accept the fact that certain truths defy logic and fall into the category of being simply beyond belief? I'm Jonathan Frakes.